Well, Abbas Idris is the Director General of the Federal Capital Territory Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, and he joins us now for more. Thank you so much for joining us on the news tonight. You spoke earlier at that event today, and you talked about obstruction, Abuja being a planned city. However, we have seen flooding, especially in the suburbs. How come we find ourselves, how is it that we'll find ourselves in this situation?
Well, I think we need to appreciate the fact that this year is different from all the years. Abuja has not suffered the flood that we are witnessing in the country at the moment. Previous years, we have lost so many lives. So far, so good. No life was lost in Abuja. And because of the intensive sensitization we carried out and the involvement of all the communities as well as other stakeholders, that has helped greatly. Secondly, the support we got from the Honorable Minister of the FCT that anything that obstructing the free flow of water should be removed that is built illegally. Even the one that is built legally, he promised that if we draw his attention, he's going to withdraw that approval so that there wouldn't be loss of life or property in the FCT. And that has given us a lot of support. And today we are proud to say that the flood in the FCT is not really as bad as that we witnessed previous years.
Especially when watching Vieteme's report from Mahoda area there. Exactly. Now, how significant is this year's theme? Early warning, and early action for all.
Yeah.
It
is one of the Sendai framework of action, which is addressing the disaster risk reduction measures. The essence is that if you cannot prevent the disaster, try as much as possible to reduce it. And you can only do that by giving early warnings. And the early warning must come with an early action. If there is no commensurate response, then it's going to be useless. So therefore, once you issue an early warning, there must be a response that will follow. And we have the two agencies that are mandated to give early warnings in Nigeria. NIMET is giving the climate prediction, and also they are giving impact-based forecast on daily basis. And then NISA, Nigerian Hydrological Agency, also is giving the flood outlook per state and per local government. So if all these early warnings comes, and without the responders being prepared to give the adequate response that is required, it's going to be useless. And that is why the
United kind of action really should...
Well, the action is, part of the action is that the responders must make sure that they have all the preparedness ready for any eventuality. And at any point in time, they shouldn't allow the things to happen before they could. We should be very proactive and tackle the situation.
Indeed. I mean, looking at that theme, it speaks to pre-disaster action rather than post-disaster reaction.
Exactly.
So what are the factors that limit our ability to prepare and act?
Honestly, to say the fact, we don't have anything that is limiting our ability to act. If you are really a responder, you are expected that you must have your response plan early enough to ensure that you are ready before. So what we are doing, in fact, for the FCT Emergency Management Agencies is that during the dry season, we don't sit down. That is when we start preparing for the rainy season. And what do? We carry out assessment of what really transpired during the rainy season, and then see where we had flood, and then identify the cause of that flooding. And then before next year, we must have overcome the situation. If you take the issue of Lokogoma, you have not had anything from Lokogoma because we have understudied Lokogoma because there is no infrastructure, engineering infrastructure there, and so we had to remove more than 250 houses that were built on the waterways. And since then, we had some sanity in that area. So this is what we do during the dry season. Before the rainy season, we must have tackled that, and then we dust our response plans. The response plan is for all the stakeholders.
But when you remove people, there's another leg to it. Where do you put these people? Because if you do not place them properly, my guess is they return to illegal structures as well and block the waters again.
Well, we
so where do you put them?
Especially when you advise them to move from lowlands to highlands. It's like people are left on their own.
So their fate.
You see, we're supposed to say we have the evacuation centers, and we are just imagining, Nigeria is just coming up in terms of these climate things. Up to now, some people did not even believe in the climate change. So I'm sure gradually we'll get to where we can have evacuation centers that you can move people, and you move people at an emergency situation. But if there is an early warning, you now ask people to move on their own to the evacuation centers. But when we don't have, we give the early warning to say, okay, move to a safer ground. I think it's better than waiting for government to come and evacuate you, so that you save your life and save your property. When the water ceases, you can go back to your place.
In other words, don't wait for government to help you. Let's talk about the different categories of early warning before we go. Multi-hazard, people-centered, end-to-end.
Yeah.
Help us understand what these categories are, and especially the people-centered one.
Yeah, you see, you must involve the communities. They should get to know that there is an early warning in a language that they can understand. So you must communicate with them strategically. And the way you communicate with them, even it has to be inclusive. With both people with disability also be notified that this is an early warning for them, and that is what is required of them to do. So once it is done, you have done a 90% of you have solved 90% of the problems, and then people will now get to know this. Like what we have jingles running in about 6 dialects, including Pidgin English, and this has been done to the level that every man or woman will be able to understand. And because disaster management is bottom up, those who suffered a disaster are people in the localities and the rural areas, and so that's why we concentrate on our enlightenment and sensitization using that. So therefore that is yielding greater result for us.
All right.
Thank you very much, Abbas Idris, Director General, FCT Emergency Management Agency. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.